Hi everyone, welcome to the channel. I'm going to make this video a little bit longer than a lot of my other ones. I tend to keep the videos about a minute long. If they're under a minute, they get posted as YouTube shorts. They tend to get more views, and I think that's good for the channel. But sometimes I get questions and people don't understand, and I think it's because oftentimes I just blast through things. So with this video here, I'm going to go into more detail and I'm going to take my time. So I hope it's useful. All right, so the question here is, in which key does this chord function diatonically? Let me play the notes first so you can hear what it sounds like. From low to high. And together you get this. Okay, so that's the sound we have written there. Now the notes written are D, A, C, and then on top we have an F sharp. So in order to figure out the chord, stack the notes into ascending thirds. And when you look at these letter names, the only way you can do that is to label it as some kind of D chord. The root would be the note D. The F sharp would be the third of the chord. The A would be the fifth of the chord. And then the C would be the seventh of the chord. So this is some type of seven chord. Now, how do you figure that out? Well, if you label D as 1, and E would be a second, the F sharp ends up being a third. The next note up would be a G, that would be a fourth above D, and then the A is a fifth, and then finally the C ends up being a seventh. The B would be a sixth above D. So we get 1, 3, 5, 7. We have some kind of 7 chord here. And the next step is to look at the intervals between the notes. D up to F sharp is 4 half steps. That's a major third. F sharp up to A is 3 half steps. That's a minor third. And then finally A up to C is another minor third. So what we have here is a major third, minor third, and then another minor third. That's the recipe for a dominant 7 chord, okay? So this chord written here is a D7 chord, or sometimes you'll hear it called a D dominant 7 chord. If you're like a pop musician or rock musician, you'll just usually call it D7. Classical musicians will oftentimes call it a dominant 7 chord. The reason why is because it is built on the 5th scale degree, or the dominant scale degree. Okay, and that's going to get to the next part of the question here. Okay, so this is a D7 chord. Now, why can't I call it some kind of A chord or some kind of C chord? Well, remember, you always want to stack thirds with chords. So if it was some kind of A chord, we'd have to have the notes A, C, E, and then if it was a seventh, we'd have a G in there. We have the A and the C, but we don't have any of the other notes, so that doesn't work that well. If it was some kind of C chord, it would be a C, E, G thing happening. We don't have those notes, so it's not going to be a C chord. And then if it was some kind of F chord or the F sharp chord, it would be an F, A, C, which we have those notes, but the seventh of an F chord would be an E. We don't have an E. We have a D here. So the best option here is to label it as some kind of D chord. Also, the note D is down in the bass, so we usually default to saying like, okay, if the note D is in the bass, probably it's some kind of D chord, you can start there. If a note that's down in the bass is not the root of the chord or not the name of the chord, that means the chord is in inversion, which is possible. That happens all the time. But it's a good place to start to say, okay, what's the lowest note? Okay, is it that chord? Okay, and in this case it is. D is in the bass, D is the lowest sounding note, and D ends up being the root of the chord. So this is a D7 chord. Okay, D dominant 7 chord. Now, back to the question here. In which key does this chord function diatonically? Okay, so what are we saying here? We're saying, okay, in which key does this chord appear using the notes of the scale or using the notes in the key? The answer is G major. Okay, this chord functions diatonically in G major as the 5 chord, the 5th chord, or the dominant chord. Okay, so here's how it works. Each scale degree in a major key has a name associated with it. The first scale degree is tonic, and then as you go up, the 4th scale degree is subdominant, the 5th scale degree is dominant, etc. And you can look these things up. They get a little bit technical, but the dominant chord, a dominant 7 chord like the chord we have here, the only place it happens in a major key, and in fact in minor keys as well, is on the 5th scale degree. Okay, so if you ever have a major chord with a minor third on top, or the minor 7th, okay, that's a dominant chord. The only place it functions diatonically in a major or minor key is on the 5th scale degree. That's it. This has to be a 5 chord. Okay. Now, in secondary function situations where you're not using the chord diatonically, it's a little bit different. But where you want to start is to say, okay, this is a dominant 7 chord. It's a major chord with a minor third on top. That's a dominant 7 chord, D7. That has to be the 5 chord. So that means this chord would be functioning in the key of G major. Okay. I hope that all makes sense. Let me know if this is helpful. Leave me a comment. And if there's other topics you want to discuss, yeah, just shoot me a message and I'll try to do that for you. Okay, take care. I'll see you next time.